Howdy, friends. I'm Joel Empey, and welcome to another episode of Joel Empey Talks NFL. And on today's episode, we're going to look at fantasy football playoffs. It's playoff time, so we're going to give my top 20 quarterbacks and top 20 defenses for Week 14, so you can decide who you should start or sit out of those groups. We're also going to look at top bets of the week for Week 14. We're going to look at must-watch games of the week for Week 14, but we're going to start today's episode by looking at the power rankings now that all teams have completed the first 3 quarters of their season. So we're going to just go through the top 32 teams. I'm just going to list them out. You can see it listed right there already. And then we're going to look at one team from each group of 8, except for the final 8, because who cares about 25 to 32? Those teams are all irrelevant at this point. So obviously, number 1, I have the Baltimore Ravens. They're on an 8-game win streak right now. I'll go more into the Ravens in a bit, but they're clearly the best team in the NFL right now, and they've risen the most from the half-season power rankings that I did until this third quarter season power rankings. After that, there's the 49ers, the Saints, the Seahawks, the Patriots. All those teams have been really consistent all year. The Packers, the Vikings, they've also been pretty consistent all year. The Vikings had a little bit of a rocky start, but they've been super consistent lately. Texans, the Bills. Bills are, one of the best teams in the AFC. If they beat the Ravens this upcoming week, they'll, have potentially a tie for the best record in the AFC next week. And they're pretty much looks like they're destined to be the 5th seed and have to go through the road the whole way in the playoffs. I digress. Number 10, the Chiefs. They're getting better now. 11, the Titans, most underrated team in the NFL. 12, the Cowboys. 13, the Steelers. 14, the Rams. 15, the Colts. 16, Raiders. 17, Bears. 18, Eagles, who just got dominated by my Dolphins. Oh my God, the Eagles have had bad luck this year. We'll talk more about that. Browns. 19, Falcons at 20, Panthers at 21, Bucks at 22, Jaguars 23, Lions at 24. They've been just decimated by injuries, the poor Lions. They had a good start to the year. I mean, obviously, a tie with Arizona at the start of the year wasn't the best, but they showed a lot of promise early on in the year. Losing Kerryon Johnson, losing obviously Matt Stafford was the even bigger loss. That's really hurt the Lions. We've got the LA Chargers, the Broncos, who I have behind the Chargers, even though they just beat the Chargers yesterday. The Redskins, who, had a big win yesterday. The Cardinals, who have just been terrible. I should probably put the Dolphins ahead of them because they had the big win yesterday, and the Cardinals have been so bad recently. And then we've got the Jets, the Giants, and the Bengals to round it out. So the top 8 NFL team that I'm going to talk about is the Baltimore Ravens. They're the best team in the NFL right now, hands down. It's decently close between them and the 49ers. The Niners obviously took it down to the wire in Baltimore in extremely inclement weather. Maybe in better weather in San Francisco, the results might have been different. But you have to give the Ravens full credit for the win. They're on an 8-game win streak. The next best in the NFL is a 4-game win streak, and there's only one team that has a 4-game win streak. It's not like multiple teams are tied for a 4-game win streak. And that's the Seattle Seahawks, by the way. So the Ravens are on an 8-game win streak. The next best in the NFL is a 4-game win streak. On this 8-game win streak, listen to the teams that the Ravens have beaten. They beat Pittsburgh, good football team. They're in the 6th seed in the AFC playoffs right now. Cincinnati, terrible football team. Seattle, phenomenal football team. One of the best for sure, right? New England, phenomenal football team. Cincinnati, terrible football team. Houston, phenomenal football team. At least a very good football team, if not phenomenal. Obviously, they just beat the Patriots last night. So at the moment, they're phenomenal for sure. The Rams, they're a decent team. The Rams aren't the Rams from last year. They're not a great team, but they're a pretty good team. And then San Francisco. So 8-game stretch, they beat Pittsburgh, Cincinnati twice, Seattle, New England, Houston, the Rams, and San Francisco. Besides Cincinnati, the easiest game in that stretch is the Rams. Like, that's no joke. The Ravens have scored 406 points this year. The next most points in the league is the 49ers at 349. So they've got more than 50 points more than the next best team. Almost 60 points more than the next best team. They have a 187-point differential on this season. Only 2 other teams, San Francisco and New England, have more than a 100-point differential on this season. The Ravens are just obviously extremely dominant by any metric you could possibly look at, whether it's just the eye test, just watching them play, they're clearly dominant, or if you look and pour into the stats, they're even more dominant on paper. Now, the top 16 team that I want to talk about is what I think the most underrated team in the NFL. I talked about them on my show last week. It's the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Titans proved again with a big win, 14-point win over a banged up Indianapolis, albeit, but a 14-point win over division rival Indianapolis, who they had a tied record with going into that game, is just enormous. This team has had potential all year, even when Marcus Mariota was their quarterback. You know, they have a phenomenal defense. They've been a team that has been to the playoffs with Mike Vrabel as their head coach. Derrick Henry is a battering ram of a human being. But they started the season 2-4. Then they got Tannehill in the mix because 2-4 was an unacceptable record. They decided to put Tannehill out there, who's been, a moderate quarterback throughout his career. As a Dolphins fan, he was never great. He played adequately. He won us plenty of games. He at one point won 9 games in a row for us. So Tannehill has been, shown to be a winner from time to time in his career. But when he took over this team, they were 2-4. Now this team is 7-5. That means Tannehill has gone 5-1 as a starter on this team. Has only lost to the Panthers. He's beaten teams like the Chiefs en route as well. I think the Titans have the best chance out of any AFC team that's currently in the hunt to make it into the playoff race. I think that they could make it as the 6th seed. They have 2 games left against the Texans. It's possible that they could win both of those and even get in to the playoffs as one of the top 4 seeds, like as the 3 or the 4 seed, and get that first round home game. Now, after how well the Texans played last night against the Patriots, do I think the Titans will sweep the Texans? No, but it's possible, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out for these Titans. Now, the top 24 team that I want to talk about is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles have had one of the most disappointing seasons of any team in the NFL this year. I'm not trying to rub salt in the wound just because the Dolphins beat you guys yesterday. You guys have been terribly unlucky. I feel actually bad. Been decimated in the receiving core by injuries. Alshon's been banged up. Deshaun Jackson has been absent since week 1. Everybody's banged up in that receiving core. Aguilar's missed some time, and then in their secondary, their secondary's been decimated. So they've just been decimated on both sides of the football in very, every positional group is a key positional group, but very key positional groups have been decimated by injuries, and that's really hurt their productivity this year. Having said that, listen to some of the teams that they've beaten this year. Or sorry, not some of the teams, all of the teams that they've beaten this year. Washington, obviously easy dubs. Green Bay, one of the best teams in the league. The Jets, easy dubs. Buffalo, one of the best teams in the league. Chicago, that's not an easy dub. Chicago, it can be an easy W, but they can make you work for it. Obviously, that defense and everything over there. So 2 of those teams that the Eagles have beaten this year, i.e. the Packers and the Bills, are top 8 teams in my power rankings that I just listed earlier. And then listen to the games that the Eagles have lost by 1 score or less. So within 8 points of losing. And I'll tell you what the score was. They lost to Atlanta by 4. They lost to Detroit by 3. New England by 7. Seattle by 8. And yesterday, Miami by 6. Now, you can make excuses or point to a single play in every one of those losses that was the determining factor. Obviously, a lot happens in a game. It's not all just one play or one circumstance that determines the outcome. But just listen to all of those one-score games that I just listed. Like, there is a particular play in every one of those games that you can point to. It was like, that was the key play that lost the Eagles the game. So against Atlanta scored a 50-yard touchdown, approximately 50-yard touchdown to Julio Jones on a key 4th down in a game that the Eagles were outplaying the Falcons the whole game. They were winning the majority of the game, and they were decimated by injuries, obviously, in that game really badly. Carson Wentz had to walk off the field and miss a little bit of time in the second quarter, I believe, and McCown had to take a couple of snaps, for God's sakes. And then in Detroit, Wentz threw a perfect ball on 4th down that ended up being basically the last play of the game. If not, I think Detroit had to kneel the ball after that, so just victory formation. It was basically the last play of the game. It was a 4th down, and Wentz threw a heroic ball deep to Mac Hollins, I believe it was, and Hollins just dropped it. It looked like the DB made a swat on the ball, but when they showed the replay, Hollins just flat out dropped it. So he just dropped a game-winning touchdown pass, what would have been a game-winning touchdown pass. And then New England, they had to throw a touchdown with Julian Edelman. They only won 17-10. They won by 7 points in that game, an extremely low-scoring affair. Their only touchdown pass was by Julian Edelman. Edelman threw the pass. They had to use a trick play. They had to go deep into the bag of tricks to find a way to win, to pull out a W in that one. That's the Patriots, and that was recently. And then Seattle also won by a single score. It was also on a trick play that was a passing touchdown. I believe it was a flea flicker. And that was also Seattle's only passing touchdown of the day. So New England's only passing touchdown was off of a trick play, and they won by a single score. Seattle had their only passing touchdown against the Eagles off of a trick play, and they won by a single score. And then the Dolphins yesterday. I mean, if you saw the game, talk about just things going not your way if you're the Eagles, and things going your way if you're the Dolphins. Devontae Parker was just, outstanding yesterday. Devontae Parker, I don't want to overstate this because I'm a Dolphins fan, but geez, dude, that guy might be a top 15. I would need to actually go through a list. He might be the top 15 wide receiver in the NFL just in terms of talent. It's amazing how many years we've had this guy, and people have talked about how good he is and how athletic he is, and he's just never been able to show it. But with Fitzpatrick there, Fitzpatrick gives him a chance to show off his athleticism. Fitzpatrick knows when to take his chances on one-on-one matchups. He knows how to throw the ball up in a way where a big athletic guy can go up, climb the ladder, and take it. And Devontae Parker's just been doing that this year. I digress, though. We're talking about the Eagles. The Dolphins were 3 for 3 on 4th downs in that game against the Eagles. 3 for 3. 2 of those plays were for touchdowns. One of those touchdowns was a trick play where the punter threw the ball to the kicker for a touchdown pass on 4th and goal on the 1-yard line. That was one of the craziest trick plays in NFL history. So all of those things have to go wrong for the Eagles to lose that game to the Dolphins. And even after all of that, the Eagles are still in the playoff race. They're still right there behind the Cowboys, just one game back. And they've got a game against the Cowboys down the line. They've got an extremely easy schedule remaining. The crazy thing is about the Eagles, the reason why I chose them as my top 24 team to talk about, is they've had so much hardships, but they could still pull it off. They could still make the playoffs. Out of all of the teams in the NFC who are in the hunt, the Eagles, like I was saying about the Titans in the AFC, they have the best chance out of any NFC team in the hunt to make it into the playoff race. Looking at my must-watch games for Week 14 in the NFL, first game I'm going to talk about is the 49ers at the Saints. Man, the 49ers, they got a rough schedule for these 2 weeks in a row. Last week they had to play at Baltimore, and Baltimore, in my opinion, the number 1 team in the power rankings. I got San Fran at number 2, and then the number 3 team in my power rankings are the New Orleans Saints, and that's exactly where San Francisco has to go after just losing narrowly to Baltimore. So they literally, San Francisco could not have, in my opinion, just based off of my power rankings, just assuming that you don't want to play the highest ranked teams, they literally had the 2 highest ranked teams they could have possibly played in consecutive weeks, and they're both on the road. Now, the Saints have looked really, really good this year, obviously. They've looked damn near unstoppable. But except for the one hiccup against Atlanta, obviously they also lost to the Rams, but it was Drew Brees got knocked out during the game, so that was a bit of an anomaly. The one hiccup against the Rams is the one time that they've really shown chinks in their armor. But the Saints have also only played one team with a winning record since Week 3. That's right. They've only played one team who has a winning record since Week 3. So it'll be really interesting to see if the Saints have maybe just been so dominant because they've had such an easy schedule, or if they can really hang with a team that is very provably one of the best teams in the league. San Francisco dominated Green Bay a few weeks ago. It's possible they could do that to the Saints. It's possible, the Saints are out here beating easier teams, and when they have to play a real big dog like San Francisco, San Fran could pump them. They've just pumped Green Bay. They've proven it, and San Fran, just went down to the wire with the best team in the league. San Fran is for sure a good team. They're for sure a for real team. So this is going to be the week where, it's not like I don't think the Saints are for real, but this is going to be the week where we're really going to find out how for real the Saints are. I think this is going to be a competitive game. I can't wait for it. Now, the next must-watch game that I'm going to talk about for Week 14 is the Ravens at the Bills. The fact that it's in Buffalo makes it even more interesting because certainly the Ravens are rightfully the favorites in this one. They're 6-point favorites even in Buffalo. So if it was in Baltimore, this game wouldn't be quite as intriguing. But I think this is a great game. A phenomenal game between two mobile quarterbacks, both guys sophomores, both guys first-round draft picks last year, right? Both teams phenomenal defenses. I think after last week, a lot of people are on the Bills bandwagon after the big win on Thanksgiving over the Cowboys. I think a lot of people were on the Bills bandwagon, but that Cowboys win, I think the bandwagon got a lot bigger. And man, if they beat the Ravens, that bandwagon is going to be all aboard the Bills bandwagon. Think about it. If they beat the Ravens, that would have them tied with record-wise with the Ravens, both with 3 losses. And the Patriots are taking on the Chiefs this week. That's a possible game for the Patriots to lose. If the Patriots were to lose that one as well, the Bills would be tied with the Patriots and the Ravens, all of them at 3 losses on this season in the AFC. The Bills are that close, really, to being tied for the number 1 in the AFC. The Patriots would still be, above them in the actual standings because they have a head-to-head win over them. But as far as an actual record goes, they would have the same record as the 2 other best teams in their conference. Now, do I think the Bills are going to win the game against the Ravens? No. I think that rightfully the Ravens are favorites. I think the Bills can't stop the run well enough to beat the Ravens. The Ravens can run the ball in too many dynamic ways. They have too many dynamic runners, and that run defense on Buffalo is gashable. So at the end of the day, I think this is going to be an exciting game with 2 young mobile quarterbacks trying to put the teams on their backs, trying to put the whole pressure of the franchise on their shoulders. And these guys have been carrying their teams on their backs in a way. They haven't been doing all of the work, but they really shoulder the pressure and run the whole offenses through themselves. These are 2 young quarterbacks, sophomores, like I said, in the AFC. This could be an epic QB duel between 2 great mobile guys for years to come, and I can't wait to see the first iteration of this matchup this weekend. Now, the last must-watch game for Week 14 is the Chiefs at the Patriots. I wish it was the Patriots at the Chiefs because I would certainly favor the Chiefs if they were at home. Going to New England, I can't favor the Chiefs. I think the Pats -3 is about right. I think it'll be a close, competitive game. But I definitely would favor the Patriots if they're going to be at home in this one. The Chiefs are really starting to look like the Chiefs again. Mahomes was showing off that Mahomes magic yesterday. They're starting to find that rhythm. They're starting to put up crazy points again. And the Patriots are not looking like the Patriots recently. The Patriots every year seemingly, they're the best at, you peak at different times, right? And that's really the key to winning in the NFL, to winning the Super Bowl. You need to win enough games during the regular season to make the playoffs. But by the time December comes, January comes, this last month of the season and going into the playoffs, you need to be peaking now. And in the next couple of weeks, you need to start your peak. And the reason why is because you need to be playing at your peak level in order to make that playoff run and beat all of those great teams consecutively. And the Patriots have always been so good at, in September, maybe losing a game or losing 2 games in September and everybody being like, oh my God, are the Patriots done? Is the dynasty over? And then the next 3 quarters of the season, they proceed to just shit kick everybody, right? This year, it was different. This year, they came out of the gates hot. They came out super hot, and they maintained it for a while, but it seems like ever since they lost to the Ravens, they've just been progressively regressing, I should say. They've just been regressing on offense and on defense. It seems like every week, just a little bit. With the way the Chiefs played yesterday and the way the Patriots D played yesterday, I do expect that the Chiefs will be able to score some points against this Patriots defense that has been so stingy all year. But I think that Tom Brady and the Patriots, Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, they're just so crafty. At home, they're going to find a way to win. They're just going to figure out a way to outscore the Chiefs. Even though I think the Chiefs are going to score a decent amount in this one, I think the Patriots, even though they've had offensive woes, they got nobody to throw the ball to for Tom Brady. The offensive line can't block. I think that they're going to win this game narrowly, but it's going to be a good one, and I can't wait to watch it. Bets of the week. First bet of the week, Dolphins, Jets, over 44 points. I just think both these teams have terrible defenses. The Jets just got pumped by Cincinnati. And then, obviously, the Dolphins' terrible defense, hemorrhaging points all season long. Now, these teams did play 5 weeks ago, and the score of that game was 26-18, exactly 44 points, which is what the over-under is set at this week. But I just think that the Jets are going to score like a good amount of points this week. And the Dolphins have been firing lately. Ever since that win over the Jets, the Dolphins have actually been decent, like not bad. They've been able to score some points every week. So the reason why I think the Jets are going to be able to score is I'm buying the Adam Gase revenge game narrative this time because the revenge is there's so many layers to the revenge game narrative for Adam Gase now. So the Dolphins fired him last year. Then he loses to the Dolphins 5 weeks ago, gives the Dolphins their first win of the year. That's gotta taste so bad if you're Adam Gase. And then they get pumped by Cincinnati last week. I didn't think they were going to get pumped by Cincinnati. I thought it was going to be a high-scoring game. Like, I have the same logic that applies to this Dolphins and Jets game. I thought I had the same logic of the Jets and Cincy game last week. I thought it was going to be a high-scoring game. Jets couldn't score shit against Cincinnati. But I'm doubling down. Even though the Jets couldn't score last week against Cincinnati, I'm doubling down. I think they can score a lot this week against Miami. I think Miami's going to score a lot. Flores and Fitzpatrick, that's a winning combination right now. And it's actually interesting going forward. I wouldn't hate if Fitzpatrick was our quarterback again next year, because Flores is just, he's got stones now. He's full DGAF mode, don't give an F. And Fitzpatrick is Mr. DGAF, Flores is just calling surprise onside kicks and going for it on 4th down and calling trick plays and all this stuff. And that's exactly how Fitzpatrick loves to play the game. Fitzpatrick will throw 5 interceptions, he'll throw 5 touchdowns. No matter what, he's going to go out there and try to make sick plays. He's going to play 110%, give it his all. He's going to lower his head to try to get extra yards running the football. Fitzpatrick is just going to play his ass off. He's going to pull out all the stops to try to win. And Flores is calling games like that now. He's taking chances. He's being risky. He's DGAFing. Fitzpatrick is DGAFing. I feel like this Dolphins team is gelling here down the stretch, and it's giving me some hope moving forward to next year. But anyways, I think this game easily clears the 44 points. I think this is an over 50-point game. My next bet is the Steelers -3 at Arizona. Arizona just lost by 27 to the Rams. They lost by 27, and they're 3-point underdogs to the Steelers. Sure, the Cardinals are at home. Steelers have to travel east to west. The Steelers have Duck Hodges as their quarterback, who, by the way, is undefeated on the year. Sure, they've been easy wins, but Duck Hodges hasn't lost a game yet. Meanwhile, Arizona's lost 5 games in a row. Arizona's offense can produce, but they've mostly produced because of negative game scripts. Like, they're losing very badly, so they just continue to throw the ball, continue to just run a high number of plays, So at the end of the day, like the total yardage per game looks pretty good, but it's not real authentic offensive production. But the Steelers, on the other hand, have the second best defense in the NFL behind the Patriots, in my opinion. And offensively, they can't do a ton, but the Cardinals have the worst defense in the NFL. I think literally the 32nd defense in the NFL, the worst. It's as bad as it gets. The most exposable matchup. Ducky Hodges hasn't lost a game yet. This is the exposable matchup. I think Duck Hodges is borderline fantasy football streaming relevant this week. I know it's your playoffs, so like that's wild to even consider, but that's how bad the Cardinals are. I love the Steelers -3. It seems like free money to me. If you want to just take the Steelers money line to, you get a little bit less return on your investment, but there's no way that the Steelers lose this game. I think there's no way that they're gonna. I think that they're definitely going to beat the 3-point spread, but there's literally like no way that they lose this game. So if you want free money, take the Steelers money line against the Cardinals. Now, the last bet of the week is my favorite bet of the week. It's the number one bet of the week. This is taking candy from a baby. Titans -3 at Oakland. Now, sure, the Raiders are better at home. Their last 2 games have been on the road in colder weather where Derek Carr is abysmal. But still, listen to the last 3 games for the Raiders, and then I'll tell you the last 3 games and the scores for the Titans. Last 3 games for the Raiders. A 17-10 win over Cincinnati. Super impressive, right? 34-3 loss to the New York Jets, who just got pumped by Cincinnati last week. And then a 40-9 loss to Kansas City just yesterday. Those are their last 3 games. The last 3 games for the Titans, a 35-32 win over the Chiefs, a 42-20 win over the Jaguars, and a 31-17 win over the Colts. Those are all like harder teams, with the exception of Kansas City, who was a mutual opponent who the Titans beat and the Raiders didn't beat. The Titans had to play all harder teams and won all their games. The Titans are playing like a playoff team right now. They're 5-1 with Tannehill. They're on a roll right now. In the Raiders, maybe 5-6 weeks ago, whenever they beat the Lions, it was looking like, they beat the Bears, they beat the Lions. The Bears and the Lions were actually, considered to be pretty decent teams at that point in the season. It looked like, hey, the Raiders might be en route here. Even going into the Kansas game yesterday, there's a little bit of hope that, hey, maybe that Jets loss was a fluke and we can go out here and win this game in Kansas and then we're relevant in the playoff race. And then they just got embarrassed. I don't think the Raiders are a relevant team anymore, and I think the Titans are an extremely relevant team. I think the Titans just roll through this one and keep their eye on the prize and keep progressing towards a playoff run. I think they easily cover a 3-point spread at Oakland. That's guaranteed money. It's my number one bet of the week. So the general fantasy football advice that I've been giving this year has been mostly revolving around the waiver wire, guys that you should be streaming or trying to pick up for long-term success for your fantasy team in redraft leagues. But this week, I'm going to give my top 20 quarterbacks and my top 20 defenses. So if you're in your fantasy playoffs and you don't know who to start or who to sit at those positions, you can just look through who I have ranked at the top 20, and you can infer who I would start and who I would sit based off of where my rankings are at this point. So starting with quarterbacks, here are my top 20 quarterbacks. I'll read them all out here in a second, but just know that this is Monday. The Vikings and the Seahawks haven't even played yet. So, Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson could both die tonight. Like, who knows, right? And at the same time, it's Monday, so a lot of stuff could happen, and these rankings could adjust throughout the week. So if you comment below in the YouTube video and ask me any start-sit questions, and it doesn't have to be about quarterback or defense. It could be running back, wide receiver, tight end, whatever. I would be very happy to answer. But to get through the top 20 quarterbacks as I see it right now on Monday before Week 14, I have Lamar at number 1. He's going to Buffalo. We've got Deshaun versus Denver. That's a good matchup. We've got Russell and the Rams. Rodgers versus Washington. Carson versus the Giants. Now we have Darnold versus Miami. He's a guy that might be available streaming-wise. Tannehill at Oakland. Another guy might be available streaming-wise. There's 2 guys right there in the top 10 that are probably available streaming-wise. Maybe one of them's available streaming-wise. That, if you don't have one of those top 5 guys, you should go and get Darnold or Tannehill. Now we've got Mahomes, Brady, Josh Allen. Those guys are likely all owned already. Dak Prescott's likely owned. Jameis could be out there. That's possible. Matt Ryan versus Carolina. Kirk Cousins versus Detroit. He might be available. That would be a guy worth getting. Minshew, I think, is a good play this week against the Chargers. Minshew was a pretty good fantasy quarterback while he was playing throughout the year. And the Chargers are a good matchup. I do like Minshew this week. And the Jaguars have a good playoff schedule in general. Like, I wanted Minshew for my playoff run in fantasy football anyways. And then when Foles came in, I was considering going after Foles, but he was not looking good. And now that Minshew's back, I'm in on Minshew. I'm in on the Jaguars and streaming him for the playoffs if you need a streamer. We got Ryan Fitzpatrick. He would be a great streamer against the Jets. I would rank him higher, but it's just tough to rank him ahead of the guys that are in front of him. You can maybe put him in front of Minshew, maybe in front of Cousins, because the game script should be probably won't lend to Cousins being really productive. Brissett at Tampa. Tampa's just a cake matchup, so Brissett in a cake matchup is worth playing. Breeze versus San Francisco. I would avoid playing Breeze. If you're a team who has Breeze, I'm sure you could get somebody that I have ranked higher than Breeze off of the waiver wire and go with that guy. It's not a great week for Breeze. Jimmy G at New Orleans. Not a great week for Jimmy G either. And then I think Duck Hodges at Arizona is a legitimate guy that you can stream. So I had to throw him in there at the end. I would play Duck Hodges this week. That would be a hilariously bold play in the fantasy playoffs. But man, I think it might pan out. And also, it would be pretty awesome bragging rights to beat somebody in the playoffs with Duck Hodges as your quarterback. And here are my top 20 defenses. Once again, you can infer who to start and sit based off of the rankings that I have them in. And this is Monday once again, so the rankings might change throughout the week. Feel free to comment in the YouTube comments who you think, if you want me to answer a start-sit question, I would be very happy to answer. And for any position, it doesn't have to be just quarterback and defense. My number 1 defense for the week is Pittsburgh. Number 2, Green Bay versus Washington. Yeah, Pittsburgh at Arizona, that's just beyond a cake matchup. I'm expecting a defensive touchdown probably in that one. Same with Green Bay versus Washington. I see a high likelihood of a defensive touchdown. Eagles and the Giants as well. Tennessee at Oakland. Houston versus Denver. Dude, these are all cake matchups. Minnesota versus Detroit. If you have any of those matchups, those top 6, feel very, very good about your situation. Trust me, feel very, very good about your situation. Now, the Colts are a team you might be able to stream this week, and they're at Tampa Bay. I like them as the 7th best defense this week. I like them more than the Patriots because they're playing Kansas, and Kansas City's heating up right now, and the Patriots are cooling off a little bit. And then Kansas City at New England I have as well, because New England's not been very good lately. It's possible that could be a defensive game. Jets versus Miami. Miami's, Fitzpatrick, he could throw 5 interceptions. Who knows? Cowboys at Bears. Bears versus Dallas. I think that's going to be a good defensive game, with the way that those teams are going to match up against one another. Sure, Zeke can run the ball pretty hard against the Bears, but I think that's going to be a good defensive game. So I like both defenses there. The 49ers at New Orleans. Obviously, you're not going to be able to stream them. Ravens at Buffalo. You won't be able to stream them. Browns versus Cincinnati. That would be a great defense to stream. Falcons versus Carolina. That would be another great defense to stream. Definitely available. Carolina's been so bad recently, and the Falcons have been quite good for the last 4 weeks or so. Then we have the Saints versus San Francisco. You could, I think the Saints D. If you have the Saints D, you could roll them out there. I think that they have an outside chance of having a really productive day. Seahawks versus the Rams, Jaguars versus the Chargers, and Dolphins in the Jets. My thing is covering that. But that rounds up my top 20 defenses for the week. So that does it for this episode of Joel Empey Talks NFL. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I really appreciate you watching it. If you did make it to the end, please like the video. Please subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitter at MP Talks. And please comment below, once again, any start-sit questions. It's the fantasy playoffs. You can never have too much advice. You can never have too many voices instructing you. So please fire me any start-sit questions that you have regarding Week 14 in the NFL. I would be very happy to answer them. And until next time, cheers, friends.